Okay, today on the show, our guest is Jennifer Wehner from the Wehner Group with EXP in Scottsdale, Arizona, and all over Arizona, actually. But let me tell you about Jennifer. From being a waitress and a teen mom in Riverside, California, to now becoming the CEO of a $200 million a year real estate team, Jennifer Wehner has a PhD in grit. In her 18 years in the business, she has been through the greatest ups and downs the market has to offer, from REOs and short sales to flipping homes, commercial real estate, and everything in between. She kept her business alive through being on the cutting edge of digital marketing tactics, including blogging, video and internet lead generation, as well as other tactics. In 2014, she started her team, the Wehner Group. Now, in 2021, just 8 years later, the Wehner Group did over 200 million in volume and continues to be in the top 10 producers in Arizona annually. In addition to building her own team, Jennifer serves as a coach and mentor to other agents across the country. Jennifer is dedicated to helping agents create their own extraordinary real estate business, allowing them to leave a legacy, build a healthy lifestyle, and empower their clients to do the same. Jennifer is a wife, a mother of four, a skydiver, a biohacker, serial entrepreneur, and is a upcoming author with her book, The Renaissance Real Estate Agent, coming soon. Now, please visit Jennifer at her website, which is wehnergroup.com. That's WEHNER group.com, wehnergroup.com. And also check her out on Instagram. She's at jennifer.wehner. We will have links to those in the show notes, so you can find them there. Jennifer, welcome to the show.
Namaste. Thank you for having me. I know we were talking off channel and just I know what you're dealing with. It's a gritty
Oh,
roller
I'm a
coaster,
mess.
isn't it? It is one gritty roller coaster, and the faster the ride is getting these days. Because when I got in 03, it's like we just were like cutting edge. We had IDX, where
Yeah.
it was on a CD, the
Yeah,
MLS.
sure.
So, and I got into video in '09. So also check out my YouTube channel. But, that was like cutting edge for the time. And if you look at it now, that video looks like it was produced in 1972. But,
Yeah.
things have changed and they change fast. And with technology and emotions and stuff, we're having to pivot and change. That roller coaster has gotten a little crazier.
I agree. I'd love to start all the way at the beginning of your journey, because our audience always loves to hear, especially somebody with as much time in the business as you, and all the different things you do. But I'd love to start all the way at the beginning. Why real estate? How did you get in? Tell us that story.
Well, let me even go before that. But, my great grandma, I'm into legacy. My great grandma on my dad's side, she came from Ireland as an indentured slave or servant. But I think 7 years to pay your ship passage is not like a really fair
Sure.
amount. But, to be able to own land, because the British, I don't know, the British at the time were doing a genocide on Ireland to get power
Yeah.
against us. But she escaped, that famine and that war to come here for freedom, and worked off her way to buy real estate, which I grew up on that real estate. I crashed motorcycles on that real estate, but I had the freedom. I remember just running out in the fields, like singing. It's like owning land to me was freedom. It truly is the American dream, because in
Yeah.
Britain, you didn't get to own it. In Ireland, you didn't get to own it. So, I knew like I wanted to get out of Riverside, California, where I grew up. It's like the opportunities were just, mediocrity is what most people were shooting for there. And so I moved to the beach. I got into fashion school and I didn't know what I wanted to do. I don't know if anybody in the call has felt that way. Sometimes I even feel that way today because we forgot to add aspiring astrologer into my bio. I'm polymath, but I got in and, met my husband, and 2 dates later, it was like, congratulations, I was pregnant, freshman year in college, going to fashion school.
Oh
I always
boy.
had multiple jobs that, I've been pretty much supported on my own since I was 16. I was homeless for a little bit of time between finishing high school and going to college. So, it's like, but I always had a job or jobs and was working towards it. I knew I'd get out of it. And I remember like when I first got my car, my first freedom, driving through these neighborhoods, because I just grew up in a frugal house. Like, you can't have that. You can't have that. It's like, are we waiting till we die so we could have things? And I'd be like, look at these beautiful homes, all these people, why not me? And it's sad because I didn't know what that visual dream was. I just knew I've worked for enough crappy managers, but I wanted to own something. I wanted to create, because it kind of like make a really crappy employee. Like I'm really good. I was a good food server. I was a really good cashier, but like those were not where I was going to end my life. So I'm going to business school now, fast track, and my daughter, I'm getting close. That was always Plan X. I was going to Cal State, whatever. It doesn't even matter. For business. I was pricing out tanning salons. I was looking at hair salons, but from an entrepreneurial lens.
Sure.
Then my husband happened to have some friends flipping here, and he's like, "Wow!" And I'm paying $1,800 a month in rent to live in Huntington Beach and
Yeah.
going to school for whatever, like Plan X. And I was like, well, oh, okay. We did the math, and I was like, let's go. So we bought two homes in 2003 that were, both of those mortgages were less than what we paid for rent, and by
Sure.
the beach. Now did have to leave the beach, did have to leave, like I was at the ocean all the time, to come to the hot, hot desert in Chandler. But then I did discover like Scottsdale and Cave Creek and like a lot more nature and Sonoran Desert. And,
Sure.
I will say at my first open house, they were skinning a javelina by the tree. And in Southern California,
What
all we
for
had
our
was,
audience that doesn't know what a javelina is? Would
it's
you
like a
mind?
big old hairy, smelly pig. And there have like, and like all these guys in fatigues were holding it from the front tree, the neighbor. And I'm like, my first open house. I'm like, all we see in California is like cockroaches and rats. Like, what the heck is that? And why are you doing that? But no, I will say it was a little culture and the heat, but you thought better hair in the heat, I have to say. But and there's a lot more cooler things to do out here. It was way cooler than I could ever imagine. But I do love that our freedom, is like really where I feel like I live. And we're an hour to the mountains. We have Sedona, literally vortexes that give you energy. And
Yeah.
I love my area. But
I'm also a huge fan, and no, I'm sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt
no,
your story about your journey, but Sedona is a place that everyone should go visit, just even for just the sheer beauty, even if you're like, oh, I don't believe in the energy vortexes, but I have been on a couple of those hikes to those vortexes, and there is something going on in those places. The energy is definitely different. So I know we're talking about real estate, but I just thought
yeah,
that was
spirituality is actually something that we don't talk about in real estate, but I actually coach too. Like one of the things we have is a visual wheel. Because it's like, do you want your employees to just be so maximum efficiency? And what if they hate their life?
yeah,
They're
for
not going to
sure.
be the best employee. So we have an exercise, and it's actually in our cadence of our coaching to draw your wheel. And you want it to be as good of a wheel, and it breaks it down to family, love,
Sure.
friends, money, jobs, spirituality. We talk about self-care and health, but don't take my word for it. The last time I was in Sedona, I'm like sitting there and I had already touched the vortex trees that where you could feel the electricity go to you. You
Yeah.
didn't have to sell me, but this lady gave me some really kind advice to my son. And I was like, oh, thank you. And she's like, yeah, I was here last week and there was like 8 of us. None of us were together. We're all strangers. And um, she goes, a breeze came through and we all looked at each other like, did you feel that? Did you feel that? And it truly was a breeze of like love and positivity. And we talk about business and numbers and it's so important, but what about the creativity and
Yeah.
because all execution comes out of the right side of the brain, and are we fulfilling our spirits, our minds? Because while it's gritty, while it's like Darwinistic right now, at the same token, there's this beautiful thing called collaboration and people wanting to help. And there's so many opportunities and people that we can truly help. So that excites me.
I think you're right, and I don't mean to interrupt your story again, but I think the idea of collaboration, I think technology has made that easier in a way because now we can find people a lot easier. But then we also know that like social media and technology actually makes us feel more lonely. So I think you're right. It's kind of neat if we use social media correctly, we can find our tribe and then we can go meet with them in person and actually experience some of those. We don't have to be sitting on Zoom meetings. And now, I mean, I just took a flight the other day back and we don't have to wear masks anymore. And I don't know if that'll change anytime soon, but it was nice. It was nice to see people's faces now maybe we're all sick. I don't know, but at least it was nice for a brief moment to be around
Right.
other people. And so I think you're right.
And
There's
connect.
something very
Yeah.
special that we've been missing for the last couple of years.
And on the positive side about the mask, because I won't get into the science and my opinions on that, but I felt we were looking at each other's eyes more,
Yeah.
because we weren't. And I actually think there's so much powerful connection in the eyes. And because I would look in people's eyes and I could see like they were like starving for connection. And I'm just kind of
Yeah.
a, person that likes to, you know, sometimes ask people like, how are you doing? No, really, how are you? Like,
Yeah.
how
Right.
are people treating you? And you'd be amazed how like they would open up their life story to you while they're the cashier at Target because no one's talking to them,
Well,
you
that's
know?
because so few people in people's lives do actually pick up the phone or say, "Hey, tell me where are you struggling right now? How are you doing? What's hard for you right now?" And everyone's dealing with something hard at all times. But you're right. Just you even thinking to ask that might be the thing that person needs to hear, that connection. So it's always a good reminder for all of us to reach out to our people that we care about and find out how they're doing.
Yeah. Yeah, love on your people. It's I was always a person it's like not always been the best with my P&Ls and stuff because it's like I'm always like theoretical first, like give get 'cause- and I always feel like the money always follows. Now, of course, we have systems and we have P&Ls and tracking and all of that. But if you do the right thing, and really like be grateful, show thankfulness, show true concern and care, and really like what's the feedback? What's the word on the streets? Like people want that authenticity. People want to be heard. They want to know how they want people to understand, and that is that thing that, we're in a new age, and COVID kickstarted this new age. And astrology speaking, we are in the age of Aquarius, a new age. So
Yeah, it's really interesting. I think, and we have this really amazing. People are so starved for connection now. It's never been a better time to like decide to add more of that into your personal life and then also your business too. Like these are people that we're working with that are putting either buying something that's super expensive or selling something that's super expensive to them, and this is an emotional decision both ways, and it's scary. Whichever way you might be buying or selling, it's scary, and to have an agent that cares, that actually isn't just going to get the deal closed but sort of hold their hand emotionally through the ups and downs of a transaction and the market, I think is the real value of an agent. I'm curious to get your thoughts on that.
oh, absolutely. And, the client experience has always been something that we believed in. I believed in, before I even had a team. I had a virtual assistant doing the really stupid stuff. And, I was spending more time like with people, having client appreciation parties, making sure sending out birthday cards. But like the what I have found is we've had to pivot faster in our conversations with clients. It's like understanding it's not just an objection handler, like, oh, and I'm not just going to tell you why you should buy with all these market stats. Of course, you should know these numbers, but you have to understand. I think the true master right now are people that understand people's emotions and are pivoting in our communication, across the board, to our clients, to our team, to our network, to our families, that communication. And, it's like kind of on that collaboration piece. Charles Darwin once said, it's not the most intelligent man nor the most capable, but the most collaborative man that ultimately survives. Because the most collaborative man, like if me and you were here, I might have my vision what I think is going to happen, and you add your input, and maybe I could see one step further, and then we bring, Kyle Whistle in the room, we one step, and then now together we can see a clearer path together. And with things changing so fast, you can't just sign up for a coaching program and be like, oh yeah, here it is. This is the blueprint in 10 years. No, it's pivoting, it's changing fast. And you're the sum total of the 5 people you spend the most time with. And not just in money, but also in collective energy and collective mindset. My mentors like like I feel like I have a big mindset. My mentors will show me you ain't dreaming big enough, and what do they say? The average person stops dreaming at the age of 30.
Yeah.
And Warren Buffett, he didn't make any of his money until after the age of 65. It's never too late to really plan your legacy and, don't put off tomorrow what you can do today. And there's always something today we can start, and there's always something today we're going to fail on.
And for sure, and having other people to help us along the way is just everything, right? I was telling I do so many of these interviews right after going to a personal training. So our listeners are probably sick of me talking about it because it probably sounds like I'm bragging, and trust me, I'm not, because it's funny. The only reason I go to the gym is because I have a trainer who there's accountability, and I pay her, and there's accountability there as well. And it's the only, I don't go on my own. I wish I did, but it's just one of those things I'm not good at. I fail at that. So I have it on the schedule. I have a coach, in this case, a workout coach, and she puts me through, and I don't have to think about it. I just have to follow instruction. But if I didn't have her in my life, and she, there's a million trainers, but I show up because I pay her. And so I can beat myself up about not getting to the gym on my own accord, or I could just go, well, at least I'm going. And now I have a trainer and I'm in better shape. But
Well,
having people,
accountability is the highest form of love. They actually, that truly is true. And if you think about, oh, my mom lets me do everything, like do drugs at the parties and stuff,
yeah,
and don't do like my mom, like the 96,000 CCNRs. I love my mom, but like that was too many rules. But it's the accountability, like the
yeah,
careability that truly is the highest form of love. And knowing what you had said, knowing your limitations, knowing your weaknesses,
yeah.
super important. Also know your strengths, but know your weaknesses are out, because there's a solution to every problem and a problem to every solution. And you
Well,
found a solution.
Well, you have, your journey is, I know we sort of kind of got caught in the middle, and I that was my mistake, but I want to say sort of where you ended up, because you weren't just this, teen mom who's going to college, got married, raising a child, trying to start business, moving, from the West Coast into the desert. 18 years later, here you are. You have one of the very top producing teams in all of Arizona. You have this amazing team with you as well. You're constantly adding to your team, and you have just weathered not just a very difficult time in the market, right? I remember those early 2000s, and then of course the crash, and then here we are now where everything's very challenging, I think. And so you've weathered a lot of storms in this market, and not only weathered them but thrived. I'm curious,
I failed a
what
lot.
your, yeah,
Let
well,
me
of
just put
course,
that
yeah.
a lot. Like I have failed a lot, but
it,
yeah.
let's talk about failure, because I do want to talk about this. We're so rarely on the show talk about failure, but I'd always heard that the successful people fail more than the average person, and that's why they succeed, because we learn through failure. It's really the only way we
Also
learn
making
most.
decision, taking
Yeah,
action. So, my done is better than your perfectly undone. How many times do I hear in language like, I want to do it, I'm trying to do it, like, and what did Yoda say? There is no
yeah,
try.
right.
But it's like, yeah, I mean, I might take like 100. Now, of course, there's a balance. If you have 100 priorities, you have none. So having like your most important priorities and ideas, but having like structure and systems in place. And I know like with the Renaissance book, and the reason why I wrote it, because I did have a team, but I also have ancillary businesses. And the compounding factor, I find most agents, like, they know math like 3% and 6%, but like, do they really understand the compound factor of what, like, the investment is, and do they understand the market and the numbers so much as what we're going into? No, because most people, and I'm not saying this to be bad, but when I coach students, most of the time their business plan is their email, maybe their to-do list on a yellow piece of pad of paper, and their text messages. They're just kind of flying off the seat of their pants. And that is a real estate roller coaster. It's like there's no and it stops. Like, do you want to get it to stop, or do you want it to go, continue to go?
And it's all
And
based on urgency, right? Like things are
yes,
flying at them, they're reacting. It feels
yes,
busy because I've got this massive to-do list, and I have all
yes.
these emails to respond to and texts, and it feels like productive. And then at the end of the day, you're like, oh, I didn't do anything to actually advance my business today because I was so busy.
Yeah, and that's where, in the Renaissance book, I talk about And first of all, if you look at the definition of an artist, every single person is an artist. I've just discovered, like, I was an artist, and it's what, inspired me to write my book with Forbes, the Renaissance real estate agent, how to unlock the art of systems into your business. And because that visual wheel that we were speaking about earlier, I actually calendar block that because, first put on the non-negotiables, put your date nights in. Do you know the top in the top 500 Fortune CEO companies, CEOs put sex into their calendar because, happy wife, happy life, happy husband, but there's probably no good rhyme with that. But start building the foundations, the non-negotiables.
Oh, we may have just lost Jennifer. Let's pause for a sec while we try to get Jennifer back. Give us just a sec. She is coming back online. So give us just a second. We will fix this in post, as they say. So thank you for those watching live. Oh, there you are. You're back. You bounced out for about a minute. So
where did I cut off? I'm sorry.
You were just, we were just saying sort of how CEOs even plan things like sex, because sex it's important. And you said that very quickly. And I just want to pause for a moment, only because we had this weird pause that happened. That's a really important thing to track, right? Like, it's as important as tracking your emails that you're replying to. And you might think, well, that's sort of silly. Should I be tracking sex? That not very romantic. And maybe it isn't all that romantic, but it is important because it's a super healthy and natural part of life that we should build in. But so I just appreciate that nobody has ever said in all hundreds of episodes the importance of making sure that sex is part of the conversation and part of something that is tracked. And I think we lost Jennifer again, so give us just a sec to get her back.
Oh my gosh.
Okay, you're back.
Technology. Gosh, the internet.
Isn't technology fun?
We were just talking about sex, right?
We for the first time ever in 5 years on this show, the word sex came up. So I appreciate that, because you're right. It is important to track every part of life that's important. Whether it's how often am I calling, my best friend and checking in on them? How often am I, contributing? How often am I telling my spouse that how wonderful they are and what they need to hear? So same thing with clients, same thing with it's all something that can be tracked. Yeah.
Right. Like, I feel like my one word of the year, we always have like a one word of the year. Mine's cadence, because I find that there's a cadence to everything. You can find a better cadence for your meetings, write all the stupid stuff you're doing. Like, there's a cadence to like cram it in, leverage to help out. There's a cadence to relationships, friendships, children, your team, on the business, in the business. But what the calendar and technology allows you to do is to know exactly what you are doing. So if you really keep it updated, as a coach, I can go and see what you were doing, and otherwise I'm just going off testimony, and most people don't have like a visual of like all logical facts that have transpired
I have such a horrible memory that I cannot rely upon my recall to accurately talk about anything. What did I eat yesterday? I'd have to think about it, and I'd probably get some of it wrong. The idea of writing things down and tracking is really, really important to avoid a lot of the like the sort of conscious.
Well, our brains aren't wired that way. Our brains, every night we go to sleep, it discards all the information that thinks we
deletion. Lots of deletion.
So that is actually the way our brains are wired. So if we're expecting our brains to perform differently just because we want them to, you actually know you have to work with the tools you got.
Yeah. Well, let's talk. So right now, the vast majority of the country agents are struggling in the most immediate sense with inventory, right? So I don't know how it's in your market. I'm sure it's just like all the others. Little inventory, rates are rising up. That gets a little stressful for buyers, of course. With no inventory, it makes it tough for agents who are working with buyers. Of course, listing agents are having a wonderful time, although it's also stressful being a listing agent because you're getting 40 or 50 offers sometimes and having to deal with that. But how are you coaching your team right now on managing some of these challenges that are right in front of them?
Well, first, I let them know what's going on in the industry right now, because Phoenix, we're here, like we're in a special market because every hedge fund, tech fund, marketing company that wants to see if their business model will work likes to come here first because we have 8 to 12,000 sales a month, high turnover, easiest to recruit market. But what they need to understand is the industry itself is changing. The market is changing. Yeah, true. But what it should be more interesting is that the industry in itself is changing. Consumers in themselves are changing. And with that, we haven't really seen, I mean, there's been some blips and no, but there really has not been a challenging market until I'd say about last year. But if we look at what's happening right now, if I could have gotten my DeLorean and gone back to like '05, I would have known, oh, March of '05, we're in a market shift. However, I didn't feel it until '08. We kind of saw it in '07, but it was 2 years later because that's how fast real estate reacts. Now, we have all the biomarkers today that we actually are in a market shift as of today. By this fall, we'll hear about it more on the news, but the public's probably not going to hear about it for 2 more years. So winter is here. Now, with that being said, what does it take you 90 hours to get a license and 1,000 hours to cut someone's hair? So
Yeah, isn't that amazing, by the way?
yeah, yeah, and doing hair salon, so I did the math there too. But we're moving into an expert market. Our whole industry in itself is changing. It's disruptive because real estate industry is 10 years behind every other industry in the world, in the most emotional industry in the world. So what are we having to do? First of all, we're having to ask ourselves, do I really want to be here or do I want to bake cookies? Baking cookies, there's nothing wrong with it. But if you want to be here because like you have the grit and the muscle and you love it so much, there's more opportunities in a challenging market than there is in a good market. So, but most agents that I see, because I've survived. I still have PTSD, like going through like what I went through.
Sure.
I mean, made millions. I lost even more millions. I was worth negative millions. Just to get to zero was a win for me. But that was 2011 when we really got into a good market. It's been 11 years since we've been in a good market, and we've seen the most agents we've ever had. Brokerages at the meantime are losing steam. They're not able to deliver on their value proposition. We all know real estate schools hogwash. Come on. Like that's why we join all the coaching, but even coaching, and I've done $40,000 a year coaching, and coaching's done great for me, but to run a business, a coaching program never taught me how to run a business.
Right.
And it's my mentors, it's a circle of tribe and, wise counsel and leveling up wise counsel. But it's super important to know right now, begin with the long term in mind. Do I have a place? What are my goals? Do I have different streams of income? Where am I learning? Who am I learning from? It's a time to kind of not like pause, not be scared, not like fear take over, but like concern, yes, because we are in winter. And if you do not stop what you're doing, and we know that there'll probably be 30% less sales this year, and by fall and by next year, we'll see here, we went from 33% in appreciation last year to probably single digits next year. Our rates are 5 and above. We aren't going to see 3s and 4s. But we can't have conversations like this to our clients because what is it about more? It's about feelings. It's about emotions. And if we truly want to be here, we are turning into an expert market. Teams are taking off. So leadership, as there's never been more time that leadership, has a lot of responsibility, and I believe you should accept that responsibility with integrity and character. And if you don't want to be a leader like that, then step down. But if you really want to be a leader in the industry, and I hope every agent in this industry wants to be a leader, because what happens is leaders grow leaders. And we used to grow up in villages, right? Like
Yeah.
that's how a couple hundred years ago, like we'd have 3 or 4 families helping each other out. Today we're kind of lonely on our own, and sometimes we feel like we're on an island with no help. I certainly felt like that in '05, and I come from podunk land. Like, nobody was a capitalist in my family, and people, the way they looked at psychology of money where I came from was like, money's evil, but the more money you have, the more you can give away. The more money you have, the more time, choices, and freedom you have. What's the legacy? Not just that for your kids, because sometimes you already screwed up a little bit. You get a parenting coach, try to make it better, but what legacy are we living for our children, our great grandchildren, our community, our friends? Because going through '08, losing everything, where my home was going to be foreclosed, my card got declined for lice shampoo. That was really cool. And I was working 7 days a week, so I was working the grit muscle, but I didn't have the mentors that I had, today, back then. And I was just a 25-year-old girl from Riverside, trying to make it on her own, and it's time to level up and not rest on our laurels. Know that this is a sober and serious season. I have so much to grow in. I know I'm constantly being that dumb person in the room. Find those rooms, but be uncomfortable. I know we talked about the real estate roller coaster, but I kind of almost feel like it's a treadmill. And I don't know if you see, I actually have a standing treadmill. I could be running right now, but it's kind of like you have to take one foot off the treadmill, and you have to, like, it feels really uncomfortable. But if you're on that treadmill doing the same things every day, expecting a different result, you're working
Right.
7 days a week, like that, you're going to be doing that forever. It's going to keep going. But when you get off that treadmill, pause, because sometimes it's slow down to speed up. What can we do about low inventory? Well, there's a lot of different directions I can go with that, because with this, how many agents do we know that, have you worked with, that you like feel sorry for their clients? Like,
Yeah.
right?
Very,
Right. So
very common.
who do your clients, who should they work with? Like, who is the best advocate for them? If you believe that's you, it's time to start leveraging. There's a lot of different ways to leverage. What conversations are you having with your client? You're going to have to shift and pivot those conversations to not "I'm right, you're wrong," but how does it feel? And understanding. This is actually just from a mastermind I got off this morning, from one of my mentors, where we collaborate every week, and I learn all the time. But, you could be, if you're looking at it, I don't know if you can see this visual here. So,
Yeah. So we're looking at
this line
rent
here
versus
is a
buy.
straight line, and this is rent, or there's a diagonal line here. So this is rent, this is equity. Sorry, buy, oh, my equity. Oh, geez, I kind of screwed that up. But it's really kind of an activity that you're going to do to show what the cost is of renting versus buying, because it's easier to rent. Might cost you a little bit more to rent, but when you show them, showing them is better than telling them. And asking, what I find is asking, as far as like, how does that, what are you feeling? You originally wanted to sell, you originally wanted to buy, what stopped that? And they'll tell you, what their biggest fears are. And it's that we're in those biggest fears is where we're going to find all of the solutions of how we can be an advocate, and showing them there might be a number of different solutions for them, but there's too many limiting beliefs out there. There's too many false coaches out there teaching them things, and I won't mention names, but some of them are famous. But if they're really looking at real estate, what is still the American dream? It's real estate. What can be the biggest impact on your client's life? The compounding factor. Agents, this is probably good learning advice for you too, because maybe you're going to want to acquire some more rental properties. But real estate truly is the American dream, and it's fear that it's letting people get in the way of that. And what we have to do is understand that and shift our conversations around what strategies, and some of these long-term strategies that have always worked. Robert Kiyosaki, he's one of my favorites.
Sure.
But look at the foundations of what's really working, and be able to be that expert to your clients, and you'll win the war. Because all the other saturated agents that don't take it seriously, don't put learning first, you're kind of just barely flying off the seat of the pants, put iPhone photos up for their listings, those agents will go. Every hedge fund company thinking that they're going to, there's a way to beat everybody with just providing the best possible client experience.
Yeah. It's so right. It's the client experience is everything. I just about a year ago bought a primary residence, and it wasn't the first time buying a primary residence. But even though I'm in this industry, I'm not a practicing agent, but I work with, lots of them. And I thought, oh, okay. And I had my boss was helping me, just sort of making sure I was, dotting my I's and crossing my T's. But I was freaked out and I was stressed all the way through the process. And it wasn't a particularly stressful transaction, but it just was like I'd kind of forgotten how it feels. And I sort of wanted to relay that to all of our agents here. Like, no, even if you know what you're doing, it's crazy stressful. And this is a great opportunity to be that stress guide, to be able to help your clients as they get scared and the ups and downs of just any transaction. It's like, if you can do that, you will be so incredibly valuable to people that they'll just tell everybody about you.
Value, right?
Yeah.
It comes down to value, and it's funny, I had a client call me, and he had already worked with one of my team members. And I think he worked with me like 12 years ago, but he called me and he's like, "What are you?" And I'm like, "What?" And he's like, "Well, Open Door and the 72 sold, but like, what are you?" And I was kind of put on the spot, and I was like, "Oh, interesting." I'm like, "Real estate technician," and he's like, "What is that?" I'm like, there's like an art and there's a science and there's numbers. It's knowing the different strategies. It's changing fast. That's me. I'm a real estate technician. It's really being the engineer. And if you can't do it alone, like, let's just put it out there. And
Yeah.
you can't even, like, if you're going to leverage, you can't even leverage on one person, because how practical is that? You need to have a team. And that's kind of my controversial opinion I put into my book. But it's growing the team. It doesn't have to be 100 people, but you need to have systems in place, and some of it could be outsourced, some of it can be in person. But if you don't have a team, you don't have leverage, you don't have a business. You pretty much indentured servitude.
Yeah, because the moment you stop, the income stops as well.
Yeah, and then even exit strategies. When I ask agents, like, "What's your exit strategy? You've been in business 30 years. What are you going to do? Like, die on a front porch? While you're like prospecting? I mean, I don't want to go out like that." But it's like, "Oh, I'm going to buy investment properties," and we start sitting down doing the math. Like, okay, how many would you need to have? Cash flow $600, $800 on each one. How much would you have to save? Like, they would have to be 130 till like they acquired, and they would have to know a whole other skill set. So,
Right.
it's practical things today, like putting a plan in place. Like, I have a one-page business plan. I can give it to you. It's really simple, one page, because if you, again, 100 priorities equals zero. you
Right.
know Staying on plan, being able to pivot, and being uncomfortable with change. And recently I'm learning Italian because it opens up your heart chakra, and EXP's in Italy, so maybe someday. But I did a speech on sfumato, and what sfumato it means is embracing uncertainty, embracing paradox and duality. And actually, if you think about it, anxiety is the closest thing to excitement, just as hope is the closest thing to defeat. So in our darkest moments, in our confused moments, in our nervous moments, there's always a way to channel this to change, and to know that Elon Musk lives, man. Elon Musk. And I don't care how you believe on him. If that doesn't inspire you, the fact that we'll be in Mars, and I already asked Glenn if I could get a dibs on expansion team in Mars. But what does, and it's sad that people stop dreaming after the age of 30. Because I remember when I was a kid, I had all these dreams. I got into real estate and I kind of forgot about them. But, dream big. Stop dreaming. Don't like live in anxiety. That's going to give you nowhere. Are you truly want to be? What do you want in life? Sometimes it's those big questions that kind of throw some answers at. No, seriously, sit back in a moment and journal it. Write it out under a tree in nature. Listen to some good music, but slow down to speed up. Have a plan in place and look around. Who are you going for wise counsel in your tribe? And at the end of the day, it's you. You're the captain of your own ship. Where do you want to take your ship?
Yeah, I think all of that is such great advice. And it's so, again, it's like getting off the treadmill of transaction transaction, prospecting, customer service, deal closed, getting off of that a little bit. And now it's
Yeah,
kind of, there's sort of, you have a little bit of time now to do that. I think maybe more than when, the last couple of years when things were just
less than you think.
exploding. Now,
Well, no, it's
yeah,
actually, I mean, every time you reach a certain extent in your career, you hit your new threshold of problems. So
yeah.
it's all these skill sets you have to learn. But, that's that uncomfortability. So I've had to learn because my time was getting taxed. And I had to learn how to kind of tear down my calendar and rebuild it with a different cadence so that I could have time that I'm most passionate about, self-care time like I coach, and reallocating that time to where it's going to be the most valuable based on my time per hour and at which level I can help. And then also time I need to learn. So
Yeah, it's about, building a life. Like you said, it's starting with that, drawing the wheel and saying, okay, how's my relationship with my clients? How's my business? How's my relationship at home? How's my physical being? What's my spirituality look like? How often am I hanging out with my friends? And what nurtures me? And what am I doing? And agents, we now, if we don't set appropriate boundaries, our clients can, with technology, can ping us anytime, day or night. We can choose how we want to respond. If we don't have systems in place, even around our own behavior, even around what are our hours, an agent, should you be available 24/7? I don't know. I don't think I'd want to be,
no,
but,
I have a
but
good scripting for that. So no,
let's hear it.
sometimes it's practicing. Well, I don't run a 911 center, Mr. Seller. So, if you reach me after the age of 7, if it's like a, immediate, like now I'm like, of course, if we're writing an offer, it's going to be, but that's not likely. So if
Yeah,
you
yeah.
reach me after 7, and, I just don't respond. If they do text me, if it's over something insignificant and they didn't listen to, what I told them. And I just treat it as, I didn't do anything wrong. So I'm not going to apologize. I'm going to call them back the next day in my business hours. It's really drawing your boundaries. I teach, I think, a lot of women, because I think I don't know, mom shame or whatever.
Well, you have to
But,
be perfect as a mom. You have to do
well,
everything
yeah.
perfect.
And you have to be like, always want to like be with your kids too. What,
Sure.
but, I put all Sundays, I will not work. And that was 2014. No, 15, 16, sorry, 2016. And I've honored that ever since. I would not work Sundays, even before I had a team. I would pivot all those conversations that were on Sunday. I did have one backup person at that time. So there's always a different way you can build this where you could start drawing your boundaries because I mean Albert Einstein, Da Vinci, like so many of the greats, they tell you how important R&R is. And we know that all execution comes out of the right side of the brain, which is the creative side of the brain. So without R&R, you're not going to be able to get that creation, which is going to cause change, change in the direction you want it to, not the not the panic train.
Yeah, not yet. You're right. And this is right now, a lot of agents, a lot of our listeners are in that panic mode because it's stressful right now to be an agent. I mean, it's always stressful, of course, but right now it's tough with little inventory. You really have to be able to take time away from your business and say, okay, how do I provide a better service right now while things are stressful? How can I take care of myself? How can I take care of my clients? How do I calm my clients down? What do I do? How do I find opportunities? But I have a question. We have so many of our listeners are newer to the business, and
Okay.
I'm curious, and because you bring on new agents, of course, onto your team as well.
Mhm.
What do you recommend to like up and coming agents or new agents? What's sort of your first piece of advice when you work
Well,
with
and
someone?
this is not a self promotion. This is just literally like I'm going to tell you the honest truth. And if I were to backtrack and go back to where I was in 2003, I would have done the same. But teams weren't prevalent. But we know in the results and story after story, the fastest way for new agents to get into production is to join a team, a good one. So definitely like interview and know that you're joining a good team and what systems, and that's a whole other story. But if they say they're already working with buyers right now, maybe you're more buyer heavy if you're a new agent. What's more valuable of your time? Going out to see 8 homes, 12 homes. Now you're 2 months later, and they're not following up with you, Or would it be more valuable up front to say, like, let's sit down with coffee, come into my office, let's set expectations up front and really build that rapport. People are either running away from pain or going towards pleasure. So, really getting deeper to understanding what their pain and pleasure and desire is. Setting that expectations. Yeah, it's crazy. Yes, this is going on. This is how I'm going to solve it. These are the different strategies I'm going to allow you. Take you about an hour and a half, but how much more valuable would that time be as opposed to, how do you like the house? No? Okay. You want to write an offer? 30 offers? Oh, no, if you actually take time, slow down to speed up, have better buyer consultations, look at your seller consultation. Are you setting the expectations there? Because we are in a shifting market. It's not just price your home $500,000 with meth needles on the ground and sell it. No, you actually, have to set proper expectations there as well. Know what's important to them. It's really get into the more humanism side and being the true professional, because we're all humans. We all have emotions, and our clients do too. And we're in this world of technology where they're hearing from their coworkers, they're hearing from Zooms, they're hearing from the media, which of course they only say good news, right? It's the
Right.
media. So of course they're in panic. This isn't what they do every day. So just understanding that and being empathetic, getting down to, like, kind of, again, the basics, stuff we forgot. But for agents to know, it doesn't matter. I have agents on my team, first year in, they've sold 38 homes. You know what I mean? So
Wow.
it doesn't matter, like, how long you've been in the business. There's a lot of agents that have been around for 20 years that don't have, like, they've never called a past client in their life.
Right.
So it doesn't matter where you're at in the business. Even if you're 65, that's when Colonel KFC, Colonel Sanders started his business. But who you are as a person is just like somebody that cares, somebody that is open and coachable, curious, be around those mentors, because things pivot, they change fast, and know that that is going to be a part of not just real estate industry, but this world, in a new world that we live in. And we have to be able to pivot with those changes and not let fear block us or our clients, because we can dispel those fears and limiting beliefs. And there are so many more solutions out there than, possibly we even know.
Yeah, it's funny. I was just at a conference with Zillow, and I know agents have a very visceral reaction to the word Zillow. Some agents like Zillow, some agents, of course, don't. But they're here to stay. They're not going anywhere. And to push against them, I understand people are allowed to have opinions, and I'm not here saying I'm pro Zillow or anti Zillow. I don't really personally think about it one way or the other, but they're not going anywhere. And so then it's like, okay, if that's the case, that 200 million Americans a month go on Zillow, then we need to learn how to accept them as somebody part of the transaction, right? It's just how it's going to
Oh,
be.
yeah.
And we can fight it and we can get mad, or we can say, maybe they're making my job a little easier in a certain way, because now I don't have to do as much searching, because my clients do a lot of the searching for me. And I can focus, like you were saying, on the more human side of things, the things that Zillow can't do. Zillow can't do the human side. That's not their job. They don't want to do it. They're not trying
No.
to do it. They're trying to say, we'll just do the tech side. And I think that's really cool in a sense, because it opens up an opportunity for agents to have deeper connection because you have more time.
Yeah, or maybe they could just save 200 million and compete with Zillow,
Right.
yeah, and it's funny because when I came over to EXP in 2018, it was because I was, like, struggling like hardcore about how to build a team, and my mentors Kyle and Dan moved, and a week later I was like, yeah, no brainer, you can see it. But I was at 4 people today. I'm at 40, and then my network 260, and a couple ancillary businesses. But when we launched, I had Open Door at the time, and Zillow was at
Sure.
the time. But those were our competitors. But I was losing listings to Open Door. I'm like, I can either beat them or join them. And now we have Zillow. It's a I don't put all your eggs in one basket, but Zillow's
Sure.
been great to us. But I had them on my panel because then I was like, okay, you do a referral fee. I could have my clients go to you, and maybe if it's a better service, I could still get paid because I can help with the human side of things.
Yeah.
So we put them on our panel, and people thought I was crazy. Like, why do you have Open Door and hate Zillow? I'm like, well, we have to, like, understand these are where our clients are going. They're like, sometimes not. Are you spending that much money marketing and retargeting to your clients? Probably not. Where are clients going? They're going to Zillow. So why not help you and your client by friending them on Zillow, seeing what homes they like? So you could be right or you could be rich.
Right,
You get to pick
exactly.
which one.
Yeah, and being right is fun for about 2 seconds, and then you realize, oh, I maybe I lost the battle here, I lost the war, I won the battle because I was right. Anyone in a relationship knows this, right? Better to get along than be right, because being nobody, we work in collaboration with each other. It is called a cooperative commission, right? We work together. Yes,
Mhm.
we are sort of competing against the other agent in a sense, although we're really working together to get the deal closed. So seeing the universe is friendly, and not that everyone's friendly, obviously they're not, but just looking for ways in which we can all get along and make things better. The agents I know that are the most successful, and of course there's exceptions, but very few, at least here in Chicago, we have 46,000 agents. And I know a lot of the top ones because of this show and, just me being around long enough. They're all pretty giving people, surprisingly. Like I would have thought they would be closely guarded with their secrets. No, they'll pretty much tell you everything, and they're nice. Being nice is an underrated thing too. Is talking about, if you're really nice to other agents, you'll see that things will start to fall your way. Just being a good human being
So
in
weird,
this
right?
industry.
Back to the
Yeah.
basics. I know it's like, and then, and just so you know, on an aspiring side, they just detected life on Venus
Yes,
last
I know.
year. And so
I know
Venus is
this.
the planet of loving and kindness. And actually, with Venus in retrograde, it speeded up right next to Mars. Mars is the planet of war, but Venus and Mars are right next to each other. So that meant the most passionate energy of loving and kindness for the universe that we could have seen. That was in February. So, but yeah, you would, kill them with kindness. We kind of hear these basics. Sometimes, like, we forgot, we complicated things, but some of those things, basics, like, they actually still are true. And loving and kindness, it goes a long way.
Yeah,
I
it's
mean,
one of those things. It's especially like if you're in a multiple offer situation and you're working with a buyer and you have a reputation. And again, maybe there's 30 offers also going out. And yes, you might not win it. And odds are you probably won't because 30 other people are competing or whatever the number of people are. But if you're known as somebody who can get deals closed, of course, the professionalism part and knowing your stuff, and then just also being a good human being, we're animals. We want to be liked. We want to like other people. We want to be out of conflict as much as possible. And if you're somebody who, your offer comes in and they're like, oh, I like that person, I like that other agent, sometimes things fall your way that probably shouldn't fall your way just because you're a nice human being.
yeah, and like I will say, like, I didn't always think the universe worked this way. But I've always been like a naturally giving person, and sometimes all I'd have to give was a smile. And I'm gonna say there was like a total like B word side of me, so I'm not trying to be like Jesus here.
Well, that's
But,
an important
like,
thing. It's important to have that too, right? When you need to stand up for yourself and set boundaries and defend them and say, hey, that's not okay behavior. Of course,
and
absolutely,
sometimes
that's
it's just
important.
like was uncalled for because that's just I'm human. So
And
like
we all
so,
make mistakes too.
sometimes
Yes, of
I
course.
sin, but it's like sometimes all you can give is like a smile. I'm like, you know what? I don't feel like giving all the books. I want to talk, but you look like somebody that needs a smile today. But I
Yeah.
carry gifts on me at all times. I just feel like empowered, like when I have gifts. So it's like I'm gonna gift you all, but it's like it truly. I'll like the freedom. Like I was at this event a month ago with agents, and I 2 years ago wouldn't have had the freedom to give $10,000 away just without looking at it P&L. Or I think I gave 15. That felt so free to be like, just give. And it's like, I came back and like positive things happened on my team. And I'm like, you told me that was the way the universe works, but I didn't believe it. But I really think it's true. And it really is true when you have that grateful, giving heart and you give without expectation. You'd be surprised at, what comes your way.
Yeah, it's that old mentality, givers get, and it's something that doesn't get talked about enough in this industry. We look just so much on how do we get a client, how do we get the deal closed, and then how do we move on to the next client, how do we get referrals. All of those things, of course, are important, and all of it's important. Systems are important. You and I are having a more human conversation than specifically around systems because I think this is a much more interesting conversation. I think, I've had a million conversations around systems. I rarely have these kind of conversations. So I hope our audience is as tuned in as I am, because look, you are not somebody who just has theories and this sounds cool and it's things that work well on a podcast. You're actually one of the top producing teams in Arizona, which, by the way, is one of the most competitive markets for real estate agents as well. So this stuff actually works, which is the coolest part of it, right? It's like you get to feel good, make other people feel good, contribute, and, oh, by the way, benefit, financially.
Yes, it's like humanizing. Everything you can do with technology. You can do some humanizing of technology, right? The action plans, the communication, but like truly being human is what your biggest gift is. Not you're an artist again. Human, you can systematize humanism into your business, and then you could add, what the time element is. But it is all at the end of the day, that's what we all want, right? We all want connection. Nobody wants to be alone. They just want to believe that somebody has their back,
Yeah.
and when you have that, and when you have that for yourself professionally, someone has your back, and then you're like winning together and you're failing together, because let's just put out there, there's still, so it's under construction at all times. For every win that you see, I have 1,000 fails that you don't. And but it's a constantly evolving. That's life, that's world, that's our industry. And if you're constantly evolving with it, it's exciting. It's an adventure, and it's what we think we don't even know what the ceiling is yet, for real estate. And if when you think about it like that, that's crazy, because it's one thing to help a buyer and seller, and I'm not saying anything like I didn't love that part of it. But when you can give back at a higher level and like literally change people's lives. I have two of my team members in escrow right now on their second home. They're going to rent their first one out. Like they listened to my advice, so I got excited. They already have equity before closing, and their spouses are so happy for me. Their kids' lives. And I'm not, again, it takes me a lot of people to help me to be just live, So like shout out for all the people that have helped me, and all the people that like are going to help me, and I'm going to help, because the more we help and we start in our communities, the more that energy expands. And when you change people, when you can see the change that you've been given, and you see that happening in people's lives, it's been the most rewarding thing that I've seen in my real estate career so far. So it is
Yeah,
something I'm
this
super
idea of
passionate
helping
about.
other people and seeing them benefit from your help is truly remarkable. We are very fortunate when the show, on this podcast, because we get a lot of that, and we love our audience for telling us, hey, this really helped me, or hey, if you interviewed this person, that would be really interesting. And it's so fun. And people say like, God, how did you get started doing this podcast? I was like, I just did it one day. It wasn't, I'm nobody special. I'm not particularly a great interviewer. Really, I'm not. I'm fine at it. I'm okay. But the reality of it is I just did it, and no one else was doing it for having these kind of conversations. And so it's one of those things that you don't have to be particularly skilled. Like you were saying, the best, your not imperfect plan that gets done is better than the perfect plan that never gets done. It's just a matter
And
of just
and
getting
it's not,
uncomfortable, like you were saying.
and the comparison is a thief of joy. I think I like comparison for the inspiration part of it. But if you would have seen me 2 years ago, 3 years ago, I joined Toastmasters. My
Sure.
speaking skills, like I would have been like a nervous anxiety wreck on this show. So like again, like we're talking here, we are today, and where would we be in 5 years? I'd probably be laughing at myself, But that like why, I think like asking yourself why, it's kind of generic, but for me, like why I am fueled and purpose filled and like driven more and just so passionate. And I would do it, I would coach for, like for free if I could, because it's just that's how passionate I am. Is like when I was in defeat and I lost everything, like my kids, I mean, I was suicidal. That was back. I don't drink alcohol, just full disclosure. I surrendered 4 years ago. But I was like in full on alcoholism, and I would never want an agent to feel that way. I
Yeah,
would not
you probably felt very alone.
alone, like like I felt like I was in this canyon that I could never get out of, and it like world would be better without me. And I
Yeah.
just, and even if it's not that low, um, I don't want an agent that truly cares and wants to be in this industry to ever have to go through that. So if I can save, and we all can, like together, collectively, where we agents can actually thrive and grow, in this business. And the ones that don't want to do this and aren't like committed enough, like it's okay. Goodbye. Namaste. But truly namaste for the leaders that step up right now because it's exciting. And I promise you, any leaders or agents listening think that you don't do it. I like to call myself a limiting belief like murderer. I always want to take my like AR-15 out, like take that like limiting belief away because I wish somebody would have done that to me. And I have limiting beliefs right now. I get checked on my belief systems like almost weekly, where I'm like, I wasn't thinking big enough, and it's yeah, the people that challenge me and fuel me, and all the people that help and support. It's so important at the end of the day because we don't take anything here. Like I don't take my CRM to heaven. I don't take my bank account to heaven, right? Or wherever going, like purgatory or wherever you think you go. But I don't believe in like flames, but we can't take it with us. So what are we doing here? But money is important to know because money provides choices, money provides freedom, money provides time, money provides like being able to change your family's legacy and the legacies of however many countless families that are out there that are going to be touched by simply a spark of your influence.
Yeah, you're boy, you just said so much right there in that one is really thinking about what's important and what is your why. And you said this, it's like again, it's back to basics. It's sitting down and writing out why am I doing this? Not just, to close a deal and what's my
Boring.
yeah,
People
boring,
don't even
right.
talk about boring anymore. Like, let's get past level one into level two, guys, straight to level two. But
Yeah.
like, what does it really mean to you? 100 million. What is that going to mean? Are you going to give a library away? Are you going to like, what are you going to do with it? But like, when you ask yourself why, what am I most passionate about? What if like if I could like take this away from you tomorrow, what would that be? But literally stopping, journaling, like literally write it down, keep a piece of paper with you, because journaling and writing is just something that we don't encourage enough. I run a real estate school practically. I am very involved with my kids' school. I've taught art history throughout my kids' schools. I'm just really passionate about art and teaching, but writing. And I have my first book out, but there is going to be a memoir that I'm actually about a third way done. So that will be on another day. But for the Forbes, the Renaissance Real Estate Agent, I really put my blood, sweat, tears, and heart in it. So it's really like the fundamentals. It'll have links all over our site with the actual tools you can use. There's a lot. It's good. It's value, guys.
Well,
Uh,
we're excited for that, and so the book
yeah.
that's coming out is the Renaissance Real Estate Agent. Once those links are there, we are going to make sure that we promote this to our audience. And again, just a great reminder of the human side of this conversation of this business, and making sure that we're not only taking care of our clients, we're also taking care of ourselves. And I think throughout this conversation, we've stressed a lot of that. It's maybe even doing a little bit less to get more sometimes, like you were saying, stepping back from the business just a little bit to making sure, am I getting everything I need? And being collaborative, having people in your life that you were saying can call you out when you need to be called out, and we all need to be called out. And that doesn't mean negatively. It just means, oh, I noticed you're doing this thing and maybe you could try this other thing, or how are you feeling, or how are you doing? And then like you were saying, joining a team if you're new, boy, you learn so much, and you learn so much faster when you're on a team because you'll just absorb energy and exactly what they're going through. But just the idea of having a community around you, having advisors around you who can actually, like, I'm so grateful I have an accountant. I mean, it sounds so simple because so many people do, but like I literally never, I mean, I probably should think about my taxes a little bit more than I do, but it's nice to go, oh, I've got somebody for that. And we go through things, and as long as I think
And
she's
sometimes you have
competent.
to Sorry
Yeah.
to wrap, but sometimes you have to level up on your wife's counsel. I'm sorry. I had a conversation with my mom a week ago at her health. I'm like, she's like, I love my doctor, 3 years. I'm like, Mom, you're in the most pain like you've ever been in. So
Right.
that's insanity. Like sometimes you have to level up your wife's counsel, and it's like
For
more than
sure.
just likability factor. But
Absolutely.
and sometimes it is addition by subtraction. Look
Right.
at your core values of who you are as a person, because you're not different as a professional organization, nor should you be. And if you're not like firing and hiring with your core values, know that how important those are, because one bad apple can spoil a bunch. And I can tell you that is this year's lesson of what I learned. I feel like I lived my childhood pattern out in my professional life last year, but sometimes like there is like activities you can subtract, people you could subtract, and more people that you would add because you were able to subtract. So it's a net positive at the end of the day.
I agree. What a great place to wrap up. I want everyone to really start to follow, some of what you do on social media in particular, because I think a lot of your wisdom comes through in your content. And Jennifer is just a wonderfully thoughtful human being who also has these incredible achievements behind her. So like I was saying earlier, what she says actually works. And boy, isn't that nice that somebody else has. And there's lots of people in this industry that have done this, but you can sort of just follow in the wake of someone else who has already made a ton of mistakes, and you'll be able to make new mistakes then that are better quality mistakes. And how nice is it that Jennifer is willing to come on and talk about, some of her challenges. And by the way, Kurt, I wanted to acknowledge the courage of sharing addiction issues. I mean, this is something that every family member's got somebody, right? We're all used to this. This happens. We don't talk about it a lot, but it happens. People are struggling, and it could be even a friend. But this is, the opportunity to be vulnerable and to be honest. I always heard the honesty is the hardest thing you'll ever do. And I never really understood that until more recently. I'm in my 40s now, and I'm like, oh yeah, actually being honest about what I'm actually going through, like the hard things, that is hard. And having people who love and support you in your life, whether it's in your business, whether it's in your family life, whatever it might be, friends, it's really, really important so that you actually have a safe place to be honest. But it takes courage, and you've demonstrated a tremendous amount of courage throughout your entire life. And that is something that I think is beyond admirable. And so congratulations on your 4 years of sobriety. That is a big thing.
Well, I'm still an
So
addict. It's now a sugar, and so I got to manage that. But if I would love to end on one note that I really didn't
please.
touch on, and it's a quote from one of my favorite Greeks, and it's one quote I love. But he was a philosopher. But um, not all philosophers are kings. But we don't have kings today. But we have team leaders. We have brokerage owners. We have leaders of the industry. But all kings should be philosophers, and it's that questioning mindset. But at the end of the day, it's ownership. Like Marcus Aurelius said, the biggest thing you'll overcome in your life is yourself. And so we can't control the external, but we absolutely control the internal. And I looked at like in that with that perspective, I've looked at every single situation I'm in, and of course, like maybe it was 2% ownership, but like no matter what, I could see why I caused that external event to happen. And maybe that external event was there to be a lesson, but there's ownership wherever you're at, like that's what your intention lies in your results. Look at your life today. If there's something that's not wrong, instead of blaming or look within, it's internal, because when you take ownership at that high of a level, and I'm not even all the way to the level I want to be, because the more you learn, the more you know you'll don't know, and the more you know that you might not never know. But you can like mastering, making a commitment to self-discovery for the rest of your life, I feel like should be a universal core value. And that ownership piece, it for every employee that you hire, a client that comes in, it didn't work out well, like you can see why you were at fault. When you see that, that is empowerment.
Yeah, and we all learn the only like we were saying earlier, we learn by mistakes. It's okay to make mistakes and it's okay to feel crappy about the mistake as long as you then say, okay, what can I do going forward so that I can improve, I can get better, I can, it's all of these things are learning. We're talking about learning and we stop learning, at 18 or 21 in a structured sense, for some people go on for additional degrees, but most of us stop learning around 21, 18 to 21, and we
It's
just
not
we
their
read a book.
fault.
It's not
It's
their
not their
fault.
fault because 10%, it's only 10% of the population that actually want to learn for the sake of learning. And that's
Yeah,
just the way like people are designed. It's not saying
yeah.
good or bad, but like again, like stepping outside of your comfort zone, knowing where your weaknesses is. If anything, I could be a learning junkie and not implement, but so there's always like
and
a,
and there,
yin and
that's
yang.
real common too, where people get
Totally.
addicted to learning,
Yes.
but not implementation. So that's why you
Yes.
need that accountability. I
Yes.
think you. Yeah, I mean, I read about podcasting for like 3 years. I didn't do anything with it. I knew how to do it, but I didn't actually do it because guess what? It was really scary. And guess what? Being scared is okay. It's okay to be scared as
And
long
what are
as
you
you
scared
can.
of?
Well, yeah, I mean, you're scared of just the unknown.
Well, and usually what I find that is like you're scared of what other people will think about you.
Oh, for
And come
sure.
on,
And
guys,
and
if we
that's
could learn about anything from high school, like let's not leave in high school because like being different when it's like you like again, like you might like have like stutter a lot and oh, there's actually an agent that stutters a lot and he actually got a lot more traction on his video channel and is a really successful agent. So, like what your biggest curse you think it is could also be your biggest gift because even being an addict for me, I see it as like a superpower because the more empathetic and the more creative, the more likely to be an addict. So, that's when I discovered I was an artist. But, there, just look at yourself because that, again, back to the Marcus Aurelius, the Greeks knew a thing or two, and you are the captain of your own ship. And I'm imagining like a Star Trek Enterprise kind of ship, but your ship can look like a yacht or, a real estate train, but I like ships or something like that. But no matter what, like you have the power, whether you believe or not believe, you're going to be right. But you do truly have the power to accomplish whatever it is that you want in life, especially right now here in America where we do have the freedom.
we are very, very lucky. The freedoms we have in this country are pretty much unparalleled, and it's easy to forget that if we just follow the news and we just
Mm-hmm.
look at what's wrong. And there's plenty of things that are wrong, but
Our
there's also
ancestors were
plenty of
starving
things that are
100
right.
years ago. Do we remind
Yeah.
ourselves that our ancestors, all of our collectively, were starving 100 years ago, and now cheeseburgers are 99 cents. So
Yeah.
we have to remember, we have to go back in the past for nostalgia and yeah, healing trauma and all that, but to learn the lessons where we are because we can't predict the future. We can be in the present, but we can see the trends and together we could see what that visual looks like for the future and how we can make a change for the positive. And I don't know about you, but there's a lot going on in the world right now, and we can end on this. But there is absolutely things we can do about it. And not running for president, maybe, but maybe being a better local leader, maybe volunteering more, maybe helping your agent community more, helping your clients at a better extent. But there is absolutely a positive impact that we can do, in the humanitarian cause that we're in.
Yeah, it's absolutely, and even just smiling at a stranger as they walk by on the street, as long as you're doing that in a non-creepy way, even doing that might just be what that person needs in that moment. And you're going to feel good when they smile back at you. So all of that is being said. So I am so grateful that we had this conversation, Jennifer. I want everyone to check out Jennifer two places. First, her website, wehnergroup.com. You can see everything that her and her team are doing, and as well as follow her on Instagram, which is at Jennifer Wehner, which is Jennifer dot Wehner, and that's Wehner. She also has YouTube channel. She does a lot of really cool things with social. She's a coach, she's an author, she's a mom, she's a team leader, and a biohacker, skydiver, etc. Lots of
Astrologer, I can do. I can on your chart.
astrologer. I would, yeah, I need it. I need it. I'm a Gemini, so I'm all over the place.
You have to know
But
where your
anyway,
moon is in your natal chart and transits.
Well, I am so glad you were on the show. And on behalf of Jennifer and myself, we want to thank our audience for showing up, staying to the end. We appreciate you. You're the reason we do this. And we hope that this was of as much fun and value as Jennifer and I had. So thank you on behalf of Jennifer and myself. And then on behalf of the audience and myself, we want to thank Jennifer. She doesn't have time to do this. She is just that busy. And she took time, she made time to give back to our audience. And so thank you on behalf of everyone who listens and watches our show. And we want to thank everyone. And please, the last thing that we will do before we sign off, we ask our audience of just one thing. Please tell a friend. Think of one other realtor, real estate agent, real estate professional, whatever it's called in your neck of the woods, and send them a link to this show. Maybe somebody who's struggling that could benefit from all of these things Jennifer was suggesting about how to go inside and actually, figure out what you can do to improve your own life and your client's life, and send them a link to this episode. The best way to do that, just send them to our website, keepingitrealpod.com. Every episode we've ever done is there. Or if they're a podcast listener already, just have them pull up whatever app they're using, search for Keeping It Real, hit the subscribe button. We would appreciate it. Jennifer, thank you so much. This was such a pleasure.
No, it's truly an honor, and namaste. And namaste to everyone listening, because the most important thing you can invest in is yourself. And so it's fun. It was fun for me. I'm selfishly saying it was fun. So thank you. It truly was an honor. And, namaste.
Namaste. We will see everyone, or I guess everyone will hear us on the next episode. So I won't see you, but we will hear you. And definitely check Jennifer and her team out. And by the way, Jennifer's team is hiring. I forgot to mention that. So if you are you can be from anywhere. You don't have to just be in the Scottsdale area. But if you are in the Scottsdale area and you want to join an amazing team, of course, reach out to her. But you could be anywhere in the world and reach out to her, and she can talk to you about the coaching she does for her team. So anyway, Jennifer, thank you so much. And we will see everybody on the next episode. Thanks.